Good morning and welcome to Behind the Screen. I am JM, and this is a show where we hang out, we talk about games, we talk about things that we love, things that we find beautiful, things that we find inspiring. And yeah, that's what we're talking about today. Good morning to John Doom, to Padre, and to Mark. Mark, are you playing Elden Ring? Because we need to be talking about this. I'm playing my sixth time through right now because speaking about things that are beautiful and inspiring, like that game is stupid difficult and so rewarding and beautiful. And oh, actually, Zane is playing Elden Ring right now, Mark. I got him into it. He is learning the ways of frustration, but I think it's good for him. He had a couple of really highs in that game and a couple of really horrible lows yesterday, but he's learning, he's growing, it's good. Let's see here. Mark says that it's -4 in Colorado. We had 13, I think, here in Texas, and I hear that Arizona, New Mexico is still in the 40s to 50s, so, screw you guys. So today we're continuing our look. January, we're looking at Castles and Crusades, and we're looking at the Umbrage Saga. This is the first box of 3 boxes called the Umbrage Saga. This one's called In the Shadow of Aufstrag, and then there's Journey to Aufstrag, and then the Dungeons of Aufstrag, and I'm really hoping that we're going to see the lower depths of Aufstrag in the future. We're going to be talking with Stephen Chenault again on Thursday, talking specifically about the Umbrage Saga as well as Aufstrag, Unclar, and more about the world of Erd. So, what is the Umbrage Saga? Well, as we talked about in our World of Erd overview, and if you went and saw our Beyond the Table with Stephen, you know that Erd is Stephen's outgrowth of Greyhawk. He played a lot of Greyhawk. He brought his campaign to an end, and then when he was coming back from his tour service, he wanted to start his game up again, and he advanced kind of the timeline 1,000 years and wanted to make something of his own. So there's a couple of nods to Greyhawk. The various tech and feel of the world is very Greyhawkian, but it morphed into its own thing. And so it's called the After Winterdark setting because Winterdark, this 1,000 years of darkness and winter, is over. Unclar, the Horned God, has been cast down, and the heroes who did so have retreated from the world, and the land is ripe with the bones of Unclar's empire, the bones of that which came even before that, and is now ripe for players to go out and do have adventures of their own. Padre, you are a man after my own heart. The Quest for Glory games still remain to this day one of my favorite series of fantasy games. Like Suck Blue Frog is the cheat code, I believe, in Quest for Glory 2, and Razzle Dazzle Root Beer, if you're playing the text version of Quest for Glory 1, allows you to alter everything. And man, what is just another great game that just... Is it on Good Old Games? Yeah, I think so. I think I might have edited that out. But yeah, goodoldgames.com. Man, such a great series. 1 through 5. If you haven't played them, go over and spend like $10 on goodoldgames.com and get most of them. Anyway, we're here to talk about the Umbrage Saga. Chat is doing their very best at distracting me, and they're doing a pretty damn good job. So, a lot of times in the OSR, what we see is the lure of the mega dungeon, right? Let's do this completely self-contained dungeon, and that's that's going to be the focus of the campaign. Barrow Maze, Undermountain, Dwimmermount, the Halls of Ardenvol, which is on Humble Bundle right now, and if you want to get it, you can pick up the entire Halls of Ardenvol, a gigantic mega dungeon, for $25, and normally it's way, way, way more expensive than that. The world's largest dungeon, yes, which was one of the early games that I got to run for Mark. We had this great session at event at Petrie's Family Games. It was a pay-to-play event. You had to pay $5 every month to play in the world's largest dungeon. And we played through the world's largest dungeon. Like, not every room and not every section, but the group made their way through from start to finish. And you earned tickets in the game. So you got so many tickets for pre-registering. You got tickets for rolling natural 20s, for rolling 1s, for doing something awesome, for finding out secrets. And you could spend the tickets on re-rolls, or the store allowed you to redeem them for gift certificates. And, you know, we would have every month we'd have a raffle, and you got to roll a d20 and add whatever tickets you spent to your roll to see if you got the prize from that month. No ticket. That was a great event, and you know, we did a Rifts one after that, and it's not as successful, I think, as that initial Lightning in the Bottle World's Largest Dungeon. Yeah, the Humble Bundle Call of Cthulhu set is also spectacular. All right, I'm going to stay focused. I think Halls of Ardenvol is on Bundle of Holding right now. So, Mega Dungeon focus. They've done something different in Outstrike. It's 17 adventures up until now. The A series is 17 adventures long, and talking with Steven, he's got plans for even more. He wants to do all of the areas beneath Outstrike. So this is more of an adventure path, kind of, again, like we talked about. Castles and Crusades, one of the things I love about it. It's the old school aesthetic with kind of the new school design philosophies. And so this adventure path takes you from the humble origins in A0 of a group of adventurers just sort of coming together to stop some gnolls out in the hills outside of Malforton, a small town on Blacktooth Ridge. And as you journey through, you gradually move closer and closer to the ruins of Outstrag. Outstrag being this massive fortress that Unklar raised in sort of defiance and mockery of the World Tree. It's this massive tree fortress. And when Unklar fell, the fortress was not destroyed. Its foundations were not rooted out. And there is a power rising to kind of take the throne of Unklar. And that's kind of what you get caught up into if you follow the A series. Now, again, they have a lot of different series of adventures, the C series, the S series, I think there's an I series. So if you don't want like a massive adventure path, you don't have to. But I love the Umbrage Saga for a lot of different reasons. One, it feels very much like a modern day adventure path. Series of adventures, each one's gradually widening the scope of both the player's understanding of the lore of the world as well as the scope of the adventure. Stakes get higher at every new adventure. Two, it's a good mix of dungeon crawling and other types of adventures, although I will say the first three are rather heavily focused on dungeon crawling. There's a lot of information in here, so that as a DM or castle keeper or game master, you're going to be able to expand out quite a bit. It's reminiscent of the Hyperborea adventures or the old TSR adventures, such as the Village of Hamlet, where, hey, here's the moat house, and that's the dungeon, and that's the focus, but we're going to give you 10, 15, 20 pages of the city and the area around the city, complete with plot hooks for you to flesh out. So this is not on rails. yes, you have a dungeon that you're going to, but the world is so fleshed out, even just through the modules, that you are given an embarrassment of riches for planning your own campaign and sending it off on your own path. Another thing that I really like is, I won't say it's morally gray, because it's not. In Castles Crusades, you're playing heroes. But there is a lot of wiggle room for what you're actually attempting to do. It assumes that you're at least motivated by greed, if not glory, and goodness, the 3 G's of good adventuring, I guess. And you have plenty of opportunities to, hey, do we wipe out the village in the forest that is populated by brigands, or do we, bring them under our heel and turn them into a mercenary company, or do we just sneak in, get what we need, and get out? There's a lot of open-endedness for the castle keeper to run with their own stories and plot lines and kind of evolve it as it's going forward, while still giving enough of a lead for the group to continue along the series if they want it. I will say, one of the other things that I just adore about the Umbrage Saga is both the looming shadow of Aufstrag, this idea that once the players get through kind of the first 6 or 7 modules, they're going to have a good idea that somebody is trying to open the gates of Aufstrag. That's a bad idea, and kind of leading them forward. But also, the guys at Troll Lord Games, like, hats off to you guys. Not literally, it's 14 degrees, and even here in the studio, it's a little chilly, so my hat's going to remain where it's at. But hats off to you for... We talked with Steven about how, the Germanic and Nordic myths are very important to him, and were woven very deeply into the fabric of Erd. This series has some of the best Fae-focused adventures that I've really ever encountered. If you like the Fae and the Fae folk and the idea of, the elves kind of living in their own realm, coterminous with the mortal realm, this is an adventure series for you. The otherworldliness of the Fae is very well conveyed, and given... the GM has given a lot of advice and guideposts on how to play them. So I'll be honest, I haven't even made it into... I've read the entire Umbrage Saga, but I haven't even made it out of In the Shadow of Aufstrag. Again, there's 17 modules. My 2nd edition D&D group, we're not playing with Castles of Crusades, although we may make a port to that at some point. We're playing through the Aufstrag, the Shadow of Aufstrag adventures in our annual TPK game. The group had several threads to pick up, and this is the one they really liked the most. And I think we've made it through the first 4 or 5 of these adventures. And the group is heavily invested. The Winter Queen is definitely an adversary of theirs. They definitely don't want this Horn of Breaking to be found and reassembled, and they are slowly moving through the adventures with very little guidance from me, because they are invested in the story. The Umbrage Saga does not just say, hey, here's this domino, push it and then pick up the next domino. It gives players who invest reasons to continue moving through. What's the most similar thing to 2nd edition D&D right now? John, I mean, honestly, so there's For Gold and Glory. You can get that for free. It's somebody's reimagining of Dungeons & Dragons. There's Adventures Dark and Deep by the Greyhawk Grognard, which is more of a reimagining as opposed to a reorganizing. For Gold and Glory really attempted to do what Osric did for 1st edition, which was just repackage the rules with a couple of updates for smoothness of play that evolved over the life of the games. Whereas Adventures Dark and Deep is really... Greyhawk Grognard is, I would call, a scholar of Greyhawk and Gygax. And he went through a lot of Gygax's articles towards the end of 1E, where he was talking about what he would want to do with a second edition, and used those as his guideposts for changing from 1E to 2E, and created Adventures Dark and Deep, which are fantastic books. But honestly, I mean, Ascending Armor Class aside, Castles and Crusades feels like 2E D&D to me, especially because I'm running 2E D&D. It's very adaptable. That's one of the nice things about Castles and Crusades. They talk about it as the Rosetta Stone of gaming. And there's some truth to that. I'm adapting this backwards to 2nd edition D&D with... all I have to do is invert the ACs. That's basically it. And I run this in 5th edition as well. Actually, they had, for a while, some 5th edition conversions of the Umbrage Saga. I think you can still get it if you're running 5th edition, and this sounds interesting. There is a book on their website for 5th edition adventures, something about the Undying, and it's the first 14 adventures in one single full-color book, which they adapted to 5th edition. I could run this in Savage Worlds basically with no issues. No, they don't have psionics. Psionics are broken in a very special way in 2nd edition. Man, I loved 2nd edition psionics, but John, you're right. All of your, there was like 2 versions of it, right? You had like mental Thaco and mental AC, and then you had the complete book of psionics. It was like, hey, let's do something completely different. Actually, there were 3, wasn't there? Because I think Dark Sun made its own changes even crazier. They were so broken. Cheers, John. This is why the John Hive mind continues. It would be very easy to port the adventure to Pathfinder, or to Pathfinder for Savage Worlds. You would probably run into two issues porting to Savage Worlds. It's entirely doable. The main issue would be you might have to make up some of your own monsters, because, right, this is set at Aired, and some of the monsters at Aired are unique, which really would just be about reskinning. But if you had Savage World for Pathfinder, or if you had Pathfinder for Savage Worlds and you had the bestiary, you're probably 80% there. The other thing that you may run into, and this is something that John Doom is running us through the first part of Rise of the Runelords for Savage Pathfinder, knocking it out of the park. Really enjoy that game. But one of the challenges converting from a D20 game to Savage Worlds is, and they did this for you in Rise of the Runelords. I'm just saying this is a design thing that you will have to keep in mind, is that Castles Crusades is based off the idea that each room of the dungeon will provide the players with a discrete amount of XP. Savage Worlds doesn't care about that. So what you would want to do is, when you walk through, say you were doing the Rising Knight A0, and you got into, what is it called? Balaam Nacht? Yeah, so even just flipping through A0, there are multiple small adventures mixed in with the main adventures. Little adventure sites, and they're not all combat. But you would want to... So A0 is short. It's 18 rooms, which actually probably is just perfect for Savage Pathfinder. But in some of the larger dungeons, you would want to boil the areas down to really focus on what's the most important thing in that area. Like not needing to hit every room or kill every goblin. Excuse me. You would want to really refine that into what's the coolest thing in this area and move on. It's sort of like when you look at old Glorantha modules and try to convert to 13th Age Glorantha. A single brew is dumb. Like for 13th Age, there's no reason to throw it in there. So what you want to do is you want to collapse areas into larger fights that are more dynamic and more interesting. But I think with those two things, it would be very simple to convert In the Shadow of Austrag to Castles and Crusades. And now I want to try that. So each of the box sets comes with They're $30. It's $30 for a box set. Comes in a nice box that looks great on the shelf. It comes with this softcover book that is 176 pages, filled with, I think we established 6 adventures. You get Hey, Steven, thanks for the subscription. You get a gorgeous map, and actually, let me show this map off even better. So this is the area of New, let me get my glasses, New Anokia, and sort of this crusade is going on here. And so you can see Aufstrag kind of there in the middle. And so this is the map of the area that these adventures are focused. And to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at, this is where all of the adventures are set. So the early adventures are kind of set here in the southeast corner, with the group sort of then, as they leave in the shadow of Aufstrag and head into Journey to Aufstrag, kind of hit this this kind of arc north towards the center. And then the last of them, you know, in the Dungeons of Aufstrag, really take place, you know, right there in the center, where 11 through 17 says, where it's, you know, welcome to the Dungeons of Aufstrag. That's kind of where they are focused. So they pack a lot of material in a very small region. And that's one of the other nice things about Erd. If you buy the Codex of Erd, you're going to get so much space to carve out and make your own. But the areas that are super detailed tend to be those around where the adventure series are set. And the other thing I should say is even with the Umbrage Saga, which is fairly, you know, large, these are still modules. You can pick one up and drop it in wherever you want. You don't even need to be playing Castles Crusades or be in Erd. I've run the Rising Knight in Pathfinder 2. I've run it in Savage Worlds. I've run it in 5th edition D&D with no connection to anything else going on. It is such... A0 and A1 are wonderful modules to just pick up and drop in any game that you're wanting to run. Last but not least, in these box sets, you also get encounter tables, and then all of the dungeon maps are in a single perfect bound book, so that you as the GM can flip to the areas that you need to and see what the dungeon layouts are. They've also got the city maps and some of the region maps in here as well, and they are labeled by adventure, which is really nice. So if you're doing the Wicked Cauldron, I can just flip to, all right, here's the ziggurat right here in the Wicked Cauldron for A3, which is actually where my players are headed next. So that's my look at the Umbrage Saga. I'll have links in the show notes for where you can get them on DriveThruRPG or where you can get them at Trollord Games. Let's see here what's left in the chat. Rise of the Runelords is great. I know Mark ran this one as well. Yes, the dungeon design, especially in a port from, I think the Savage Pathfinder team was still getting their legs underneath them. The adventures are fun. Please don't, I'm not saying that we're not having fun. But that first part of Rise of the Runelords opens up just great at the festival and the goblin attacks, and you're moving through and you got all of these options, and then as soon as you hit the Catacombs of Wrath, it does feel like you've entered into an old school dungeon where you start at the Glassworks and you're moving through. Which for Savage Worlds, I mean, I don't have an issue with. I love dungeon crawling, but I think that some of the other players in the Savage Worlds games are used to more Pinnacle style design, where there's a lot more interaction and a lot less dungeon crawling. But I still think that for all that was in the Catacombs of Wrath in the first edition of Pathfinder, and again, that's the thing to remember, there wasn't even Pathfinder when Rise of the Runelords first came out. Rise of the Runelords was actually the first OGL product that like independent OGL product that Paizo was putting out, right? They did their stuff in Dungeon and Dragon, but Burnt Offerings came out right at the tail end of 3E when they were trying to see if there was a market. So it harkens back to a much earlier time in game design. So yes, Padre. The link in the show notes will include the links to buying each of these little box sets on Drive-Thru RPG in PDF form. Yeah, Mark, I remember us talking about Rise of the Rune Lords. And I think they did an update of it in when they put out the anniversary edition. John, we got to see if there's any good Phoenix conventions that I could take a road trip out to and playing some games out there this year. That would be awesome. Maybe see if Padre can come up for it. Well, oh, excellent. See, iconic, bringing people together. So until next time, that's it for today. We've got the Castle Keeper's Guide overview on Thursday, and then Thursday afternoon at 3 Central, I will be having Stephen Chenault back on of Trollword Games to talk about the Umbrage Saga. So, stay safe, stay healthy, stay gaming. I am JM, this has been Behind Screen, and I will see you all on Thursday. Until then, have a good one.